And Alyssa's work is space archaeology. What on earth, or not on earth, is literally space archaeology? So it is the blending of high tech, and the most basic of all ways of exploration, walking around, finding out more stuff. We're using high-tech satellite imagery to find new archaeological sites, new remnants of ancient civilizations, and then going live on site to find out more about the ancient cultures and people that made up these amazing places. So I'm really excited about this personally, and I hope you guys are too. Without further ado, thank you so much for joining us, Alyssa, and take it away.
Hi, everyone. Like Jesse said, my name is Alyssa, and I'm a digital or space archaeologist living here in Cambodia for 10 months on a Fulbright grant. I did my undergraduate at Dartmouth College in New Hampshire in anthropology, and then my master's degree at the University of York in England in digital archaeology, and now I'm here in Cambodia on the Fulbright grant. And so I'd like to start off by asking if anyone can tell me what archaeology is.
Yeah, so let's head to Miss Hudson's class. What do you guys think? When you think of archaeology, what jumps to mind?
Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones, I love it. Anything else specifically? That's a great answer.
Dinosaur pictures.
Dinosaur pictures, yeah, okay. Excellent. How about Miss Elliott's class? What do you guys think? Rocks, okay. We've got rocks, we've got dinosaurs, we've got Indiana Jones. Alyssa, what do you think?
So dinosaurs is paleontology, rocks is geology. Archaeology falls under the umbrella of anthropology, which is the study of people. And so archaeology is specifically the study of the things that people leave behind. And archaeology also often involves excavation, which is digging in the ground to recover material. And it's also the study of ancient cultures and the people who lived in these places specifically. And so archaeology is important not only for the cultures that currently live in these spaces, but also for all of humanity as a whole, so that we can understand how we got to where we are today. And so I'm going to put up a couple pictures of famous archaeological sites to see if you know where they are and what they're called. And so let's see if this screen sharing works.
We can do it together.
We can do it together. Okay. How's that look?
It's loaded. Perfect. It looks great.
Perfect. Okay, so who can tell me what the top left image is?
All right, so Miss Lisa.
What it is and where it is. Top left, this one.
Yeah, so in Dover, what do you guys think? You can say it. The pyramids? Yeah. And where is that? Where are the pyramids located?
The Great Pyramid of Giza.
Yeah. And where? Whereabouts? What country in the world?
Egypt.
Egypt. Awesome.
Perfect. What about top right?
Yeah, you guys can keep going. Go for it.
Colosseum.
Colosseum. Where's the Colosseum?
Italy.
Italy. Alyssa, are they right?
Rome, Italy. What about bottom left?
All right, so I'm going to go to Miss Hudson's class for that one. What do you guys think? Miss Hudson's group.
Stonehenge.
Stonehenge. Where's Stonehenge?
Awesome.
Yeah.
England.
England. Wow,
Yeah.
we got some good classes.
Salisbury, England. And what about the bottom right?
Yeah, Miss Elliott's group. What do you guys think?
I have no idea.
No idea. Okay. So Alyssa, you'll have to tell us. We're excited.
All right. Well, the bottom right is Angkor Wat in Cambodia, which is actually right down the street from where I'm living right now. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about Cambodia and its amazing temples like this, and a little bit about the research that I'm doing with them. So I'm going to start off by going through a little bit about how I ended up as an archaeologist and how I got to where I am today in Cambodia. And then I'll talk a bit about Cambodia and the archaeological research that I've done here with my team, and then open the floor to any questions that you guys might have for me. So how I got into archaeology is I actually went into my undergrad degree wanting to do astronomy. But then I took this really awesome anthropology class called The Rise and Fall of Ancient Civilizations. And the first class, I just fell in love with the topic and what we were talking about. And so after the first class, I went up to my professor and I asked if she had any research that I could help with. And she said, yeah. And then I started working with her in her lab for a little bit. Then one day she came up to me and asked me if I wanted to go to Teotihuacan, Mexico with her to do an archaeological project with her and a couple other professors and a couple students who were in like grad school. So I was the youngest one on this project. And so I got to go to Mexico, which you see in this slide here. And I got to climb the Pyramid of the Sun in Teotihuacan and go in a hot air balloon over the ancient city and also draw figurines that were over 3,000 years old. And I was just like, wow, this field is incredible. I'm going to stay here forever. And so I fell in love with archaeology in that moment and then used that as kind of a jumping point to figure out what I wanted to do with it. And so after I got back from Mexico, I met a professor who was doing digital archaeology. And so can anyone guess what digital archaeology is?
All right, we'll go back to Ms. Leacher's class. What do you guys think? Digital archaeology.
Like, so archaeology, but so you study stuff but that are online, pretty much? Like digitally.
Study stuff online, study stuff digitally. Yeah.
Anyone else?
Yeah, okay. How about Miss Elliott's group?
Artifacts on a computer.
I didn't quite understand that.
No, that's okay. Miss Hudson's class. What do you guys think? Digital archaeology?
It's when you go explore stuff by yourself.
Yeah.
I think it's when you analyze fossils or do something like that. Take
Yeah,
satellites. I don't know.
Hey, we got satellites, we got analyzing fossils, we got all sorts of stuff.
Awesome. Okay, so archaeology as a science is inherently invasive, which means once you excavate a site, like once you dig into it and pull all the artifacts out of it, you can't put it back together. So as archaeologists, when you do this, you have to do it correctly the first time and record every little detail you find within the excavation. And once you do it, that's it. And so with digital archaeology, it's using techniques to where you don't have to actually break the surface of the earth. And you can figure out new ways to learn about the past without actually doing any excavation. And so digital archaeology incorporates non-invasive techniques so that we can avoid digging as much as possible and keep archaeology where it belongs in its context. And so this includes things like magnetometry, which you can see in the picture here, where you walk across a surface and it sends an electrical pulse under the ground and it tells you if anything's underneath the ground, like a building or a wall. And you can do all of that without even digging. You can just see on the data that there's something under there. And then, so that helps with archaeology because you know exactly where you want to dig if you wanted to dig something up. You don't have to just dig up the whole field and hope that something's underneath it. And so another form of digital archaeology, or what a lot of people call space archaeology, which is what I mainly do, is using remote sensing techniques. So satellite imagery, like someone said, and airborne laser scanning to find archaeological features. And so airborne laser scanning is really cool because it removes the tree cover over a landscape and lets you see all of the archaeology beneath the surface or beneath the tree canopy. And so on the left, you see a picture of what you'd see like on Google Earth, Google Maps, with a bunch of trees here. You can't really see anything underneath it. And then on the right is an example of airborne laser scanning where it removes the tree cover. And now you can see there's a whole temple complex under here that we wouldn't have been able to see before. And so with airborne laser scanning, we can use this to map all of these water features and reservoirs and temple complexes, and then compare them spatially to where they are compared to other temples or where they are compared to big bodies of water and trade routes and all these different things. And so when I learned about digital archaeology and space archaeology, I thought this was so awesome because you could learn so much about a landscape without even having to go to the place where the archaeology is. So I thought that was really cool. And so after graduating from my undergrad, I decided I wanted to go back to school to get my master's in digital archaeology. And at this point, I only knew that I wanted to do digital archaeology, but I didn't know where in the world I wanted to focus my research on. But then someone who went to my undergrad and graduated 7 years before me added me on Instagram. And she had been doing some really cool digital archaeology in Cambodia. And so I decided to send her a DM and asked if we could talk on the phone a little bit about her research because I wanted to learn about what she was doing. And then at the end of that phone call, she invited me to come to Cambodia with her and do research with her. And so this is her in the top left, this is Sarah Klassen. And then these are some photos from my first experience in Cambodia, which was almost a year ago today. And so that's how I ended up here. And after I visited Cambodia for the first time last year, I received the Fulbright grant to spend 10 months here doing research. So now I'm currently on my 4th month out of 10 living in Cambodia, which is all the way over here. US is over here. Most of you are here. And to get here, you fly all the way across to land in Cambodia. So that's about 20 hours of flying to get to where I am, depending on where you are in the US. For me, it was about 20 hours from California. So it's a long ways away. So Cambodia is known for its big monuments like Angkor Wat, like I showed you before. And it was largely inaccessible to the rest of the world up until a couple decades ago because of a civil war called the Khmer Rouge. And during this period, a lot of these ancient temples were destroyed, along with a lot of the people who were researching them as well. And so while research and new technologies were being used in other parts of the world to study history, very little was being done in Cambodia. And so that's one of the reasons why this research is important, not only to bring awareness of this culture to the world, but also to the Cambodian population who have lost so much. And so my research this year has mostly been focused on Kokere, which is a temple complex about 2 hours northeast from where I am now in Siem Reap. So this is Siem Reap Angkor Wat right here. And then you travel 2 hours by car usually to get to Kokere. And so this is a picture of the main temple in Kokere. Kokere was once an ancient capital of Cambodia, and at its center is a 7-tiered step pyramid that's about 35 meters tall. For context, this is a little stairway on the side of it, and there's little tiny people on top of the temple. That's how big that temple is. It's huge. And so one of our goals, or within the temple complex, which is pretty huge, there have been about 96 temples found, many of which are no longer standing. And so one of our goals for research at Kokere was to document some of these temples and make 3D models of them, which I'll talk about a little more in a second. And so the team I'm working with brings together researchers from all over the world, including Cambodia, Australia, Canada, Brazil, France, the United States. And most of our research here is in digital archaeology. So it's using non-invasive methods for conducting archaeological research. This means instead of excavating and digging into the ground, we're using satellite imagery to map archaeological features. And then we use that mapping to go into the field, figure out where we want to look. And then in the field, we use stuff like ground penetrating radar to see beneath the surface. And then we use drones to survey the temples and document them, and then use that imagery to build 3D models of these temple sites. And so now I'm going to show you a quick minute-ish long video of some of the drone footage we took for 3D modeling. And while you're watching this, I want you to think of some reasons why we would want to document and make 3D models of these temples. And so I'm going to play it now. So this is showing you 4 or 5 of the temples that we went to around the complex. My colleague Michael was flying the drone, and what we would do is try to get every angle of the drone. There's me. Prasad Lake Nang. This is my favorite temple because it's red brick. That temple's very eroded. This one's very eroded. You can see a lot of these have toppled over since they were made. Here's another one. So can anyone tell me why we would even want to document and make 3D models of these temples?
Yeah, how about Miss Hudson's class?
Yes, you would do it because one learn about human history and how people were back in the 70s.
Yeah, we can get a better sense of the history, how people were living back then. Excellent.
Study the shape and
Yeah.
What's happening to the temples?
Yeah.
decomposing.
See how they're changing over time, study the shape. Excellent answers, guys.
Awesome answers. Yeah, that's perfect. So the main reasons we want to do this are for research, for preservation, and for education, basically. So for research, if a model is done well enough, you can do things like measure each individual brick or zoom in and look at all the detail of like the carvings and the pillars or the doorways, and then use the model to compare it to temples around the world. And then for preservation, while these temples have been standing for 1,000 years or so, that doesn't mean they'll always be around forever. Things like war and erosion and tourists and just time in general affect the preservation of these sites. So digitally preserving them allows for future generations to study them even when they're no longer here in the future. And for education, these sites aren't the easiest to get to. Even Cambodians who live here have trouble getting to it, and many people have never seen them before. And so making them digitally available brings awareness to their existence and can fuel excitement and curiosity to learn about their history. And so I'm going to walk you through kind of the process of making one of these 3D models now. And so the second temple that was shown in that video, Prasat Lek Nang, for making a 3D model, what you do is you use the drone to take pictures of the tall parts way up top where you wouldn't be able to see on the ground. So that's like the entire roof and the upper detail. And then you use just a regular like iPhone or camera to take closer detail of the bricks and the doorways and up close with the temple. And so this turns into hundreds and hundreds of photos of one object that you put into a program. And so I actually made this model last night so that I had something to show you guys. And so this is an example of the first stage of this process. And so if you see in the top left, it says there's 184 cameras. So in this model, that means there's 184 pictures going into making this model. The more pictures, the more detail, the better the model. And so each of these blue squares is where a picture was taken in space. So the program can detect where the camera was when you took the photo. So if you're standing way back there, it knows you were over there. If you were standing way close, it knows exactly where you are in space. And so here's an example of without all the cameras showing. So it first makes a point cloud of the object that you're trying to model. And it shows kind of like a rough image of what your model is going to be like. And then through rendering processes, you get more detailed images of the model. And then, so this is a dense point cloud. It kind of filled in some of the empty gaps there. And with each process, it gets more and more filled in. And then from here, you can do stuff like clean up the model. Like, for example, I wanted to take out this tree because we don't really care about the tree right now. We're just caring about the temple. So I took away the tree. And then now you're left with just the temple. And then with one more rendering process, you have a model of a temple. And so that's kind of the process we go through with modeling all of these temples. I did this one very quickly, so it's kind of wonky in some places, but usually processing a model takes up to anywhere from like 2 hours to 24 hours, depending on how many photos you have and how good your computer is. So this one, unfortunately, only took a couple hours. But yeah, that's what we were doing at CoCare, and we're hoping to do more field work in CoCare in February and maybe do some excavation because now we know where some of the features are underground that we want to focus on. And we're currently trying to sort through all the data that we collected this last December to get it ready to figure out what else we want to look for.